Hello, and welcome to Vector-Borne Illnesses. This is the 40th episode in the Crossing Thin Ice podcast series, brought to you by Actuarial Risk Management. I'm Dave Ingram, and I'm joined today, as always, by Max Rudolph. Today, Max will be presenting another emerging risk topic, one that is evolving rapidly with the warming weather. Diseases that have historically been confined to other continents are advancing northward, as tropical becomes a season rather than a region. You will hear about both the public health implications of this situation as well as the likely impact on the insurance industry. Today, VBI is an emerging risk, but it may not be long before we're dealing with it on an everyday or at least an every summer basis. But before we go on, I want to mention that nothing we say here is intended to be investment advice. We intend to provide educational materials for risk managers. So let's get started.
The vector-borne illnesses, or VBI, geographic range is expanding northward as temperatures warm and winters trend shorter and less harsh. In the U.S., the range is expanding into Florida and other southern states for diseases not seen previously. Reproduction is boosted as temperatures rise. Ticks and mosquitoes both prefer their surroundings moist. In New England, reforestation of areas previously cleared for farming provides additional habitat for deer and mice, followed by ticks and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes can be controlled by reducing areas where stagnant water can accumulate. Chemicals can be sprayed and genetic modifications introduced to limit reproduction, but mosquitoes have proven that they are quick to adapt. There's been some success in reducing the number of deaths from malaria in Africa, especially in rural settings, but the mosquitoes have evolved with people and are now moving and adapting to life in cities. New mitigation strategies will need to be developed. South America currently is suffering through another dengue outbreak. The United States continues to see expansion of Lyme disease, and mosquito vector diseases are spreading north as warmer winters fail to limit their range. Zika virus, which is significant to pregnant women and can cause birth defects, including small heads, has resurfaced in Brazil and should be monitored closely for cases elsewhere. Preferred protection includes insect repellent, covering skin with clothing when outside, and use of protective netting while you sleep. Checks for ticks should occur on humans and pets immediately after outdoor activities. Arthropods are invertebrates with jointed legs and a hard exoskeleton. VBI are spread by hosts that include ticks, flies, fleas, lice, and mosquitoes. Some carry pathogens, often a virus or bacteria, from a reservoir host, often a deer or mouse, or to those they bite opportunistically like humans. Lyme disease is caused by a bacterium, often carried by a deer or black-legged tick. It is found in the eastern half of the U.S. Symptoms include fever, rash, and joint pain, and can last for months even after treatment. A dog vaccine is currently available, but a human vaccine was pulled from the market 20 years ago due to lack of demand. Lone Star ticks are based primarily on the Pacific coast and can cause severe allergic reactions to red meat. Other pathogens carried by ticks can cause flu-like symptoms, blood clots, and organ failure. Ticks also infect pets, wildlife, and livestock. This is kind of disgusting, but they've been known to swarm cattle and literally suck all the blood out of them. Especially relative to diseases borne by mosquitoes, relatively few resources have been allocated to managing or eradicating tick-based diseases so far, even though cases are growing exponentially. There are quite a few pathogens, including viruses and parasites, transmitted by mosquitoes. In North and South America, diseases include chikungunya, West Nile, yellow fever, Zika, dengue, and encephalitis. Globally, malaria is the top concern, especially for children in sub-Saharan Africa. Multiple infections are common. Symptoms range from flu-like to neurological, with many asymptomatic but some deaths. Most mosquitoes do not carry these diseases. Some vaccines are available with funding provided by governments and NGOs. Tourists should always utilize existing vaccines, so they don't bring new diseases back home with them and inadvertently expand their range. Additional funding for VBI research could be used for vaccine development, genetic research, and general studies that look for and implement solutions.
Now we want to tell you about ARM's ERM Advisory Services. Our ERM Advisory team, led by Dave Ingram and Max Rudolph, is available to provide a wide range of support to your enterprise risk management program. For example, we provide ERM training and education for insurer boards, executives, risk management staff, and general employees. The Crossing Thin Ice series of newsletters, webcasts, and podcasts, which you just listened to, are examples. A full range of ERM topics are available for presentation in person, live via webcast, or delivered as a recording for general ERM education or advanced training. And we can adapt our material to align with your existing or planned ERM approach. You can even mix and match, reserving us for a day or more with time split between education and risk discussions. We are happy to discuss your situation and how we might provide you with the help that you need to move forward, drawn from our decades of experience working with insurer ERM programs. Max, this is the 10th emerging risk topic that you've chosen for our series. I'm starting to wonder, though, are these topics really emerging risks, or are they really just short-term predictions? Because I keep seeing your topics in the news a month or six later after you've talked about them.
Well, they're definitely not predictions, and I think to some degree, some are in evolving risks, and others haven't happened in recent memory. So we do tend to assume that they can't happen. I tend maybe to be, where people talk about technology and early adopters versus the rest of the group. I tend to be an early adopter for emerging risks, and I tend to look for them perhaps more than other people. But the number of billion-dollar events is increasing exponentially over the last 50 years. Each decade, it seems like it doubles. And that makes it an important insurance topic. I've been working on emerging risks for 20 years, and Dave, you have too. So maybe I'm more sensitive to picking them out. The world is changing very quickly and seems to be moving faster and faster. And as we've been highlighting with our work on regime change in some of our other articles and podcasts. But I have what seems to be a never-ending list that I've accumulated of potential future topics. It's nowhere near being run down to zero. Sometimes I wish we were back in a stable environment where things happen more slowly. A calm period would be great, but conditions now are ripe for an extreme hurricane season, and we're overdue for earthquakes in a number of different regions. So I'll be surprised if it slows down, anytime soon, whether it's due to physical events or, we're moving much more into geopolitical events as well that seem to be ramping up.
Well, that's interesting. So, Max, what made motivate you to take this topic, vector-borne illnesses, off of that list and share it with the Crossing Thin Ice audience right now?
Yeah, this is a topic that keeps coming up on my radar, and it has implications definitely for our personal health, but also for morbidity costs. The Society of Actuaries did a paper about Lyme disease recently, which was pretty interesting. And then the territory you need to worry about ticks and mosquitoes is spreading. I've seen two ticks already this spring, and I live in a location where I've never seen it, had a tick land on me before. On top of that, a few years ago, I was at a climate conference and spoke to one of the speakers at the networking happy hour, where he was bragging about how many times he had malaria. That every time he goes to certain areas, sometimes he forgets to get the vaccine or whatever precautions he was supposed to take ahead of time. I just don't forget things like that. When somebody tells you a story like it's one that keeps you on track. We also had the issue during the Brazil Summer Olympics is a risk of whether people should go to Rio de Janeiro that summer because of the vector-borne illnesses that were rampant down there. But we survived that. Hopefully, we'll continue to improve solutions.
With regard to these vector-borne illnesses, what role do you think public awareness and education plays in controlling the spread, and what can we do to improve those efforts?
Yeah, I think both are important because some of the most effective techniques to limit these diseases really can be done by anyone. If you dump out standing water or turn over a container so water doesn't collect, pretty easy, right? And that can help control the mosquito population. But awareness of the risks makes someone in an area with, let's say, malaria, more likely to sleep under bed netting. Somebody who's aware to look for ticks is much more likely to actually look for them, on their pets, on themselves, maybe to wear longer pants or take other precautions as well. There's things scientists can do that can genetically modify mosquitoes so that the next generation never makes it to adulthood. And maybe that could be applied to ticks as well. But many measures are really simple. That if you know the risk, the solutions tend to be common sense, I think, in many cases.
Okay. So what about something like reforestation? That seems like a great thing that people are doing, but does that have an effect on the spread of vector-borne illnesses?
Yeah, I still think it's a good idea, but this one is pretty easy to respond to. More forests are going to increase your vector-borne illnesses. Ticks like deer, and deer like trees. So if you have more trees, you're going to have more deer, and you're going to have more deer ticks, and you're going to end up with perhaps additional volume of vector-borne illnesses.
So how do you see that working out, that balance between ecological conservation and the need to control things like these vector spreading populations in the future?
With several routes used to manage mosquitoes and ticks, technology is going to have a place through things like remote sensing and reporting. And I tend to think of it like agriculture, where they're putting mini doses, just right over a specific corn plant as opposed to treating the field with, just spraying the whole field. So that would allow biological agents to be applied only where they're needed. No more clouds of pesticides for kids to play in, as happened certainly in my youth. Genetically modified mosquitoes that don't become adults have already proven useful, and this could be extended to the tick population as well. The use of insecticides must be accomplished strategically because many of them are being proven to be carcinogens as well. And so the cancer risk for humans and other animals is increased. So we have to be careful about it. So, Dave, how do you see issues like this fitting into insurance company planning and risk management in particular?
Well, as I said at the outset, Max, this one doesn't seem to be one of these someday we'll worry about this. It's more like someday real soon we'll worry about this. May be a risk management issue today, but it's going to be an operational issue soon. So it's going to be showing up, like I made the distinction earlier about things that go into planning versus things that go into risk management. This is one that was off the table recently. It's going to come onto the table for risk management soon and move onto the table for planning not too long after that. And a good planning process is going to look ahead to those issues and at least mention them in the planning process. And it may be that how it'll be dealt with is rather than bringing it up during the planning process, you'll appoint a task force to look into it and to move it forward. So I think some insurance companies will be doing something like that. There's a lot of topics that this raises that we'll be paying attention to in the planning and risk management. Specific things about the geographic footprint of the company. How does that overlap? You could probably draw a line somewhere of here's how far the different vectors are on the map, and here's where they could be in 5 or 10 years, and you can put the dots where your geographic footprint is and see what the overlap is. You can deal with the issue of employee protection. Are employees at danger going from the parking lot to the building, even answering those kind of questions? Looking at what impact these things are going to have on your claims. Are you concentrated, your business concentrated in the area where that line's going to move past? There's a certainly a short list of states that are probably going to be within that area fairly soon. There's things that the insurance companies can do in their own communities to be proactive about this. They can also, insurance companies have done this on other issues, becoming a vector for communications out to policyholders and their sales force and so on, to just spread the word of what needs to be done. Those of us that work on these kind of things can start looking at how does that affect exactly how our insurance coverages work. Sometimes when something new like this comes up, the first thing we think of is, well, let's exclude this, somehow or other. That may or may not be an option. We need to be imaginative and think of how that is going to do that. Those of us doing risk assessments can think, what are the direct impact on the risks here? What are the indirect impacts? How is that going to affect our calculations of tail risks in particular as we look forward? Thanks, Max. While it seems deeply disturbing that we're facing this problem in the not too distant future, it does seem that there's time to learn about the things we can do both personally and through government public health programs. So we need to keep this emerging risk in our radar so that we're ready for this additional repercussion of climate change. And in the meantime, we need to make sure that these diseases and their insect carriers are in the sights of funded research. On that note, we end today's 10th Emerging Risk podcast. We hope that you have learned something from this episode of Crossing Thin Ice. If so, please like, subscribe, and share the link with your coworkers. Thanks. Talk to you next time when we have for you another interview with an artificial intelligence user, Kalen Shang, who will tell us about his application of AI to investment strategy setting. Goodbye.